Good morning. Today's text analysis is going to be over an excerpt from one of my favorite books titled Bronx, Masquerade by Nikki. And this book is about a classroom of kids who are writing poetry. And finally, their teacher allows them to do what they do, like Poetry Fridays, where they write their best work and then a couple of them present to their class. And it actually becomes such a big thing in all of them kind of identifying who they are and their preconceptions of their classmates. Because after all, a masquerade is like a ball or a party where you costume up and you put a mask, something to hide who you really are. And they come to terms with the fact that most of them do that. So here's what I want you to consider as we read today's excerpt and the little poem attached. What is the so what or the theme of both the excerpt and the poem? Understand that the character in this particular moment is coming to terms with the fact that a lot of people just see her as a light-skinned black girl with good hair, and how much that really bothers her, because at the root of her identity, she is African American, and she wants to be able to embrace that and not have people immediately just judge her, again here, on the color of her skin. What's the tone? What is Tanisha's overall attitude toward this subject? How do you connect? Has there ever been anything that you wish people would just understand or could understand about you? And how does having the excerpt from the actual book help you understand her poem better? Please join me in reading the excerpt from Bronx Masquerade by Nikki and the poem by Tanisha Scott, one of the characters. I'm better off with friends like Deandra and Janelle, who know I'm more than what I look like. They know I've got a brain. They know I know how to use it. They're no dummies either. That's why I asked Mr. Ward if the three of us could do a project on women of the Harlem Renaissance for extra credit. We had our first meeting at my house. Can we do Zora Neale Hurston? Asked Janelle. I know we read Their Eyes Were Watching God in class, but she wrote a bunch of other stuff too. You're right, I said. Good idea. And I picked up my pad and I wrote Z. Hurston on the top. Okay, that's a good start. But I think we should cover some other women you don't hear so much about. Like Georgia Douglas Johnson. I read some of her work in a book called 3,000 Years of Black Poetry. I'd never heard of her before, but I bet nobody else in class has either. Cool, said Deandra. Maybe I should read that book and see if I can get a couple of ideas. You can borrow it from the library, I said, as soon as I return it, that is. We all laughed. I'm notorious for turning library books in late. Meanwhile, Deandra, you can start working on portraits of these sisters so we can use them for our report covers when we're done. Well, I didn't wait for her to volunteer because I knew she wouldn't. For somebody who has talent, she spends an awful lot of energy hiding it. But I figure it's enough for people to tell she's good. She'll start believing it. That means people really actually have to see her work. I'm going to make sure they do, even if I have to keep volunteering her for projects till we graduate. She's not about to say no to me. She knows I'm stubborn when I want something. Fine, says Deandra. I'll do the portraits, but don't look at me when Mr. Ward sees those report covers and busts out laughing. Laughing? What do you mean laughing? Janelle and I look at each other. I nodded, and on the count of three, we jumped on Deandra and tickled her till tears of laughter squirted out of her eyes. Them's my girls. They don't care what I look like. They know the only difference between my color and theirs is that the slave master who owned my family raped my great-great-grandma instead of theirs. And like my dad says, that ain't nothing to celebrate or be stuck up about. For the record, by this character, Tanisha Scott. It's the blood that tells. Slaves back as black as Mississippi mud ring the trunk of my family tree. They speak through me, black as they want to be. The slaver's white drop couldn't stop the spread of African cells. They're bred in the bone, past the slick hair, the too fair skin. So don't tell me I can't fit in. My heart beats like a talking drum. My mom hums to Bessie just like yours. The brothers in my dreams are pure ebony, and blue-black grandmother arms like the ones that cradled my ancestors have often cradled me.